today's interview with Greg, remember, many people find the work of lawyers inherently interesting. You can take advantage of that interest multiple ways. If you're on social media or plan to begin, you can draw large numbers of views and followers by commenting on high-profile cases. When you have an especially interesting case, you can contact news organizations and receive free publicity. Let's get started and see how Greg does both of these. Hi there, welcome back to the Grow with Kara show. Today we continue our interview series with successful attorney marketers. We're taking a close look at what's working, what's not working so well, the specific steps these attorneys took to get to where they are. And remember, these are simple steps that you too can follow to get on a similar path to growth. Okay, let's dive right in like we always do. Today, our special guest is attorney Greg Kirakosian. Greg is the founder of Kirakosian Law, a personal injury and civil rights firm in Los Angeles. The firm's collected millions for their clients. We're excited to have him here today. Welcome, Greg. Thanks for joining us.
How are you?
Great. We're excited to dive in. So Greg, to begin, tell us a little bit about your story, your background, and why you launched the firm.
So I grew up in a family of lawyers. My mom was a criminal judge. My dad had his own practice. So I got this unique perspective of government work and private personal injury type practice that he did. He did, family law and that sort of stuff. But this is all obviously way before social media or marketing. My dad used to do ads in the local Armenian yellow pages, or our version of it. I forget what it's called now, and that sort of stuff in our newspapers. And he did really well. And my mom was a criminal judge, so it was kind of in the family. And I got lucky and decided I was going to do it well. I was going to do it as well. And I ended up loving law school. So, ended up passing the bar, and I immediately jumped into Mark Garagos's firm, who was way more well known for doing the criminal defense stuff, but he was starting a civil practice as well. And so I was one of the, I don't want to say first, but handful of his original attorneys that started doing civil cases, and just learned an extreme amount there. But he was kind of like an old school type attorney. He wasn't doing social media or doing anything like that, but I got to see how he became such a public figure. And it was by doing a lot of high profile cases with some famous people and, major civil rights cases. And then he started doing a lot of news kind of commentary stuff. And so that's what I thought, this is 10, 13 years ago, was really the only way to be big. Either you're advertising somewhere, on billboards or newspapers, or you're just going to get yourself in the paper. So I tried that route. I really tried to get myself exposure through bigger cases, and that really jump-started my career. In 2017, I started my own firm.
Nice. Yeah. So those early days, sounds like you were relying heavily on the exposure of the larger cases. Also, maybe word of mouth, some referrals. Sounds like you had a solid network.
Yeah, a really great. I mean, that was really a majority of my cases, even through some of the cases that got on the LA Times or made it public in any way. A majority of the cases were still through referrals, but I think people feel a lot more comfortable sending you cases and referring stuff if they see you must be doing something right if your cases are getting some sort of public exposure and people are talking about you and talking about your cases. So I think that having a public eye, I don't think I got that many phone calls from hey, I just saw you in the paper and I wanna call you. I think everyone else who knows me and is in my network were he must be doing good. So let's talk to him about this case.
What were you doing specifically to sort of cultivate that, those relationships and those early referral sources? How were you doing that?
Honestly, being Armenian was a huge aspect of that. I'm from we're a small community in Los Angeles, not that small, we're still, but we are a community. And luckily my parents really put me in that community. I went to an Armenian school, and my Armenian school is very close to our other sister schools throughout Los Angeles, and we would always have events together. And I went to Armenian youth camps and events like that. So, I mean, our wedding was 250 young people, you know what I mean? And then another 200, of our cousins and older stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I've just really made a tight knit group of a lot of friends, and keeping relationships like that has extended into, you know, the friends I met at UCLA or the friends I met at Loyola. It's just, once you make a friend, you're a friend for life is kind of how we grew up. So I've just made a big network of friends, really. That's all it is.
It's smart. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. So what type of PI cases are you primarily handling now?
So we do a kind of mix. Because when I started out, I didn't have a budget to like spend 300 grand on SEO or pay per click. I just wasn't going to do it, and I didn't have it.
Yeah.
I what was the question again?
Just what type of cases you're primarily?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So the cases I learned that with Garagos, because he did a lot of criminal defense, was a kind of police misconduct aspect to it. You know, like guy was arrested, was it false and was it excessive, or an excessive force case? So we did a lot of those cases. I learned them really well. Nobody wants to do those cases. Not nobody, but you know, when you compare how many civil rights lawyers there are compared to PI accident lawyers, you know, it's astronomical how many more PI car accident cases there are. And for good reason. Those cases tend to be kind of easy. Like, oh, it's a rear end. You got some medical treatment. Like, we're going to get you money. It's not rocket science. The civil rights cases are heavy in law, heavy, you know, contests. They fight tooth and nail to protect those officers. So I started doing those cases, and I kind of found a little niche there that worked to my advantage, because those are also the cases that tend to get a little public eye, I guess.
Right.
It's interesting when somebody is, you know, shot in the back. There's gonna be a news story about that. Last maybe a month ago, we had a case we signed up that was already in the paper before we even got it, and then once we got involved, they did even more stories about it. So that tend to get my name out, and so half of my practice, if not even a little more, is civil rights cases, and all my PI cases tend to be from referrals and stuff like that I'm not getting through SEO or advertising.
Got it. How big is the firm? How many support staff? How large is it?
So there's about 6 of us, and a lot of it, I've really gotten used to using independent contractors. So I don't have anyone in my staff creating our trial binders. I just send that out. You know what I mean? I don't have anyone, you know, really doing any of that mundane stuff other than calendaring and like motion writing. You know, that's what we do internally. Everything else I try to send out, honestly.
I think that's really smart. How did you go about recruiting those either independent contractors or virtual assistants, whoever you're using?
I don't know. I think mostly word of mouth. I'd follow up on, you know, with different lawyers and see what they're using. You know, like I thought of trial binders because we're preparing for trial right now, and that company was, you know, referred by somebody I did trial with, I don't know, like 7 years ago. And so I still use them to this day, and they do great. And so why am I going to have my staff spend, you know, precious time? Because we're mostly attorneys. We're not that many paralegals and stuff like that. So, you know, it's either me or, you know, we have somebody else help us with it. And it makes sense financially and time-wise.
Right. And you mentioned since COVID, the team's been remote, correct?
100%. Yeah. We only go into the office to get, you know, mail twice a week, and that's kind of it. And if we meet a client, we still have our office space, or at least a portion of it, to like meet a client if they insist on meeting you. But even that, everyone's so comfortable with doing stuff on Zoom now. No one's dying to drive anywhere to meet anybody. So we're like 99.9% remote at this point.
So it sounds like that had a positive impact on the business, going remote and streamlining that.
I think positive impact on our moods and our motivation for sure. And the work product, in my opinion, has gotten a lot better. It did take a little bit of getting used to, because I don't know what anyone else is doing. But, you know, by the end of the day, I'm getting the work product anyway. You know, I'm not standing over somebody's head, which is even better for me, because I'm not breathing down anyone's neck. I'm not wondering why somebody's over there texting on their phone instead of working. I just kind of do my work, and at the end of the day, I'm looking at everyone else's stuff, and it's so much better. It's so much easier on me mentally, honestly.
I can really relate to that. Yeah, I understand. What has revenue growth been like over the years for you?
I got lucky right when we started. I got a really good case and ran with it. So that was like really, because I was really scared at first. You don't know who's going to call you. You don't know how it's going to work out. But I took a shot in the dark and I ended up getting a great case. And then every year it's grown by like 10 to 20%, really gradually, almost like clockwork. I haven't had like that breakout year where I've suddenly made 42 million. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen. I haven't had that big of a case yet. But every year it's been a very gradual. We get a couple more cases and then we stop taking some of the smaller cases and focus more on the bigger cases. That's really has been our like number one focus this year, is to stop trying to take every case and really focus on bigger cases and focus more on them and fight them a lot harder. And I really enjoy doing that a lot more.
That growth, I mean, that steady growth, you can never complain about that. That's
yeah,
great.
for sure.
Yeah. So what's fueling the growth? Let's talk specifically about how you're marketing the firm. How are most of your clients finding you?
Almost. So within a given week, let's say we get like 100 phone calls. I want to say 95 of them are 100% from Google, not through pay-per-click, not through really anything other than organic SEO for civil rights cases. So we get a ton of civil rights calls, but as you can imagine, a lot of them are cases we just can't take. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, I was pulled over and I got a ticket, and I showed enough. It's like, hey, we can't help you with that. So, we take 5 to 10 of those a month out of the 100 that we get. And we get about, 5 cases a month that are just from referrals or maybe sometimes we get people who accidentally, they'll get in a car accident and somebody will tell them, you need a civil lawyer. And so they'll Google civil lawyer and I rank up really high for just civil. So I'll get a couple just accidental SEO cases through that. And the rest are just referrals through friends, colleagues, coworkers, that kind of stuff.
How long have you been investing in SEO? Are you working with an agency? What does that look like?
Yeah, we are with somebody right now. We've gone through a lot. And I've learned a lot through just trial and error. Like at first I knew SEO as like, it's what Google thinks, how high you should be ranked on Google. That's kind of all I knew about it. But in terms of like, what Google's looking at, like H1 tags, I didn't know what the hell that was. I didn't know that mattered. And, what kind of word count you have and how many videos you have and all sorts of things where, we've learned over the years that you need. And I've learned most of it through my current SEO guy from Silvex, SLVX, I think is how he calls it. And he's just honest. Honestly, that was the number one thing. He's just been really upfront. Like, hey, you're never going to be number one on personal injury. Like, I mean, if you were, we'd have to spend, a ton of time and a ton of money. And so, we'll do it. So you still get some ranking and Google recognizes you as a personal injury lawyer, but you've got this great opportunity with civil rights. And if we kind of lean into it, it's going to work. And that's where your bigger cases are coming from anyway. So that guidance from somebody who was honest, instead of, everyone we had before was just like, we'll do it. We'll get you there. And then we wait a year or a year and a half and we've gone nowhere really.
Right.
So, yeah.
How did you find this current SEO? It sounds like you've been through quite a few.
Through a friend who had a totally different company who's doing something totally different, really gave me the same pitch that I just gave. Like, he's just been great compared to, this company in India or this local company that was really expensive. He's just great. And so I found him through like a friend of a friend even. Like over a random dinner where I met somebody, he gave me his name and he's been fantastic.
That's the best. Yeah. Can you take us through the SEO approach in as much detail as you are sort of, involved in? In other words, is it a content approach? Are you seeking backlinks? What does the actual work look like?
I think it's a little bit of both. You got to kind of do both. So the content's got to be there. And it never has to be perfect, but it does have to be there within a certain range of words and keywords and that sort of stuff. And then backlinks are really kind of not my, like, I don't know where we're, how we're doing it or what the domain authority is for each thing we're doing, but I know it's out there. I know some of them get bounced back. I know some of them are better than others, but I leave that to somebody I trust, which has been the best thing, is just someone you know you can trust. Because before, what the people were doing was just putting us on random, shit sites, and they'd be like, "Look at all these sites we've got you on," and they're nothing. It's, if anything, I think it started to hurt us because they were just like shotgun blasting us on the internet, and then it kind of helped for a little bit, and then it would dip. And I think as Google realized, hey, this is not what we want. We don't want somebody who's just shotgunned all over the internet on a really random places. And so we stopped doing that. And I was guided that way through my current SEO guy.
Smart. Do you have funnels set up or any kind of follow-up sequences if the prospect doesn't sign up right away? Is there anything to kind of keep in touch?
No.
Okay.
I don't do any of that stuff. So we have our intake people here, and they're trained to know what a good civil rights case is. They're trained to know what a good car accident case or employment case is, because we do employment cases as well. And the minute they know it's a good one, alarm bells start going off here. Find Greg or one of the attorneys who can like talk to this guy and really make them feel comfortable and get the wheels moving.
Yep. Are there certain KPIs or key performance indicators that you kind of keep your eye on from a high level, just to kind of see, the health of the business, or, are things going in the right direction? Do you have that kind of reporting set up, or is it a little bit more broad?
No, nothing fancy. No real, every couple months I'm looking at our caseload, and I'm looking at the cases I really like, the cases I really, really like, and the cases that are like, hey, this is great, and this is not so good. We gotta, and I'll look at that, and I'll see I'll project what the year is going to look like. I'll project how many more cases I think we can take, that sort of thing. But I don't have like a report or any sort of KPI. I don't even know what that is, even though I'm sure I've heard it over the years. I don't do anything like that.
Sure. What about those cases that you can't take? You said that, obviously those are coming through, maybe the more kind of rudimentary accident cases or whatever they might be. Are you referring those out, or is it just something that you're really just focusing on the civil stuff?
Because the majority of the cases are civil rights cases, if it's a good case, we'll take it. If it's not a good case, I wouldn't even know who to refer it to.
I see.
There are, I imagine, smaller civil rights firms. There are bigger ones. I'm not going to refer these cases that I wouldn't take to, a Dale Gallipo type person or a Cochran firm. Yeah. Because they're just gonna be like, no, they're gonna, if I'm saying no, they're definitely gonna say no.
That makes sense.
And I don't really know a lot of civil rights lawyers, honestly, who would just take hey, I was, pulled over wrongfully. They held me for an hour and then they let me go. Like that's a case. There's something there. Mm-hmm. But what's that case worth, going all the way through trial and fighting for 2 years? Like, I don't know who I wouldn't wish that on really anybody, because it's going to be a lot more work than you might get in front of a jury for an hour of your life being detained wrongfully.
Sure. Greg, if you had to estimate, about what percentage of your revenue do you think you're spending on marketing and advertising?
Small, very small. Yeah. In terms of revenue. I mean, we spend a lot more on trial animations with one case than we probably do on marketing, honestly.
So you're really, it sounds like the investment is going to SEO. Are you investing in PPC? Do you have any traditional advertising? Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Zero.
That's great. Well, let's talk about social media on the topic of free marketing. You're active. You're at Kirakosian Law on Instagram. You have more than 26,000 followers. It's actually how you and I connected. Is social media a sizable lead driver for the firm, or why is it worth your time?
Again, we've definitely have gotten a lot of cases through social media, through Instagram. Like, we'll get DMs randomly like, oh my God, I got in, I was, in this sort of a case or this sort of a situation. Can you help me? I think it's helped a lot more in terms of my friends and colleagues understanding what I do, understanding that I do it well, understanding, all sorts of things about me and how I do them. So it tends to be more of a reminder for my network that, hey, I'm out here, here's what I do it well. That's kind of really, I think, the most important thing. I know you've interviewed people like the CEO lawyer, that's his name, right?
Yeah, Ali Awad.
Yeah. And I watch his stuff, and I feel like he's like the opposite. He's what I don't know if I'd say I wish I could do with social media, but I imagine that's really everybody's goal, is to like get a ton of followers and get random strangers to just call you nonstop because they saw your video about a car accident case. I don't do that much social media. I just don't have the time for it. And honestly, I feel unnatural doing that much social media. I just don't like it. I'll do enough where I feel uncomfortable, but the minute I'm like, I don't want to do bells and whistles type SEO stuff or social media stuff, I just won't do it.
Right. It seems like what's kind of working best for you is sort of this newsjacking approach, right? Where you're kind of commenting on, either a high profile case or something, occurring in the news. Tell us a little bit about that and your approach.
That's 100% like exactly what I think I started doing, and it's worked well for me. And it's because these cases are interesting, the public has an interest in these civil rights cases. They end up in the newspaper, and that ranks extremely high for SEO. LA Times has a really high domain authority. So when they're linking to me or mentioning my name or my firm, Google, I know, is looking at it like, Greg Kirakosian, civil rights, like for sure. I highly doubt you're going to be in a newspaper for a car accident case. It's not going to happen. So started doing that. Google started recognizing me, and I immediately kind of kept that going. Sometimes I'll even reach out to some of these reporters that I've worked with in the past and say, hey, we've got this new case. No one knows about it. It's really interesting. And, we did that. I'm thinking one of the bigger ones was Lyle Spruill was one of my clients, where like he was just 100% wrongfully arrested. They just completely made up a story about what he did. I don't want to get into too many details. And then once I got some video evidence to prove he didn't do anything they accused him of, the LA Times was extremely interested in telling that story.
Of course.
And then that led to meeting some people who did a lot of these LA Sheriff's Department gang type investigations and stories about, which have been really fun. I've done a couple stories and podcasts on that. And then I'll post every time there's a news story or somebody interviews me or something, I'll post that on Instagram. And then that led to TV organizations kind of seeing that. And then I started doing, I'm forgetting the name of the TV show I'm doing now. I can't remember.
A news program? Yeah. Well, that's what I was finding.
Oh, it's called iCrime. Sorry, iCrime.
iCrime. Oh, nice. Yeah. That's what I was noticing is, not only, in addition to your cases actually being featured in the news, you're often interviewed or, sort of asked for your commentary on varying topics. It sounds like you have some personal relationships to reporters and journalists in the area. Do you work with a publicist, or is there, because it seems like you're regularly appearing on the news?
No, actually, that's something we just talked about internally the other day. Again, through a random friend, a random dinner that we were at, they were like, you really got to just talk to a publicist because they'll really help you. Right. If you've done all this 100% by yourself, imagine if you had a publicist who has way more connections to stuff than you do. And so that's like on the books, like this week to see if we can find somebody. And we already have somebody in mind.
Great. That seems to make a lot of sense. Yeah. That's great. Just focusing a little bit more on social. When did you start? How did you decide to start? And did you pick Instagram as your preferred platform for a reason?
I think it started maybe 3 years ago. I don't remember. 4 years ago. I can't even remember. It was definitely like I waited too long. I should have done it like while I was a young lawyer working for a really big firm, and we would, take the jet to certain places to do cases. You know what I mean? Like that would have been cool. I would have had a presence and stuff. Yeah. But I waited till we had a firm, and my wife kicked my ass and was like, I don't care how introverted you think you are. It doesn't matter anymore. You have to do this stuff.
Right.
And I don't think TikTok was really around that time, 4 or 5 years ago.
Right.
And Facebook was dead by then as well. So everything was on Instagram. And I don't think I've even started a TikTok yet. Because I feel like TikTok's a little bit different. But yeah, so everything's on Instagram right now.
And when you shoot, are you just shooting on your phone by yourself? Do you have a videographer that's helping you?
It depends. I've only done a couple videos where I'm like telling people about something. I haven't done that many of those. And again, that's because of my own serious insecurities about how that looks. So the few times I've done it, it's just been with my phone, like either just held up on something. Like I have no fancy contraptions. It's me and my wife, like trying to balance it just right. So it's, whatever with okay lighting.
Right.
And that's kind of it. And then she'll just quickly put it together, edit it, and post it.
I love it. I always like to ask that because I think that can sometimes be a hurdle for attorneys. They think they don't have the fancy equipment, or, they don't have the scripts, they don't have everything perfectly set. And that, is sort of, is a big challenge, a hurdle that is difficult to get over when, they really just need to kind of be getting that content out there.
That was for sure. Our first hurdle was that. And again, my wife came through and was like, just shut up. Like, let's just do it. Everyone else is doing it. Like, it'll be fine. And then I realized, oh my God, we need nothing. Like the iPhone is more than enough. Right. And then the other hurdle is honestly just being scared, I think. The fear that goes with like putting yourself out there. For some reason, I can do this all day. I can talk to people all day, but me just talking to a camera, trying to explain something, I feel very uncomfortable kind of just doing that. I don't know. It just feels very advertising ish to me. Right. But again, my wife yells at me constantly because that's what everybody does. It's normal. There's nothing no one's looking at saying like, look at this idiot, telling us about, civil rights or whatever it might be. Everybody does it. That's the new normal. Right. I haven't caught up with that yet, but I know I will eventually, and I'll start making actually like more content by myself.
Right. I noticed you have just loads of positive reviews from clients. Is there anything you're doing to kind of cultivate that or obtain those?
No, I think for a while we would remind clients, like at the end of a case, they'd say they're happy, and we'd be like, we'd really appreciate it if you would leave a review. We'd really appreciate it if you, and then we'd like Google and Yelp, please, both of them. But I think in the last year, we just haven't pushed that as much, but we still got enough reviews. It's not like we're like dying for more, but we should kind of pick that up again. Because again, I feel very uncomfortable asking clients like, hey, you've had this traumatic experience. Sure, we got you a great result and you're happy with us, but take, a moment out of your day so we can help more people. It's hard to continue asking people for that, but you have to do it. And we do it from time to time, which is why we have reviews. But
yep. Is there anything else you do to kind of stay in touch with past clients? Sounds like you have, just some really strong, satisfied clients. Is there anything you do to keep in touch?
Honestly, I stay in touch with a lot of them just because I don't have I know there are email systems in place where you send them like Merry Christmas kind of emails, and I don't do anything like that. I often will just think of my past clients because they're honestly, a huge part of my life is these interesting stories that I've been a part of and helped, resolve in some way. Right. And I'll think of a lot of them from time to time and just kind of text them out of the blue.
That's cool. I'm sure that goes a long way, really. I mean, that definitely distinguishes yourself. So, Greg, before we wrap up, I always like to ask if a lawyer watching has time to adopt one, maybe two of your tips, what would you recommend?
I would say don't be scared to reach out to news organizations about some of your interesting cases, especially employment lawyers. I'm surprised more people aren't reaching out to news organizations about a really big class action. I feel like people would be interested that X company is getting sued in a class action, and don't wait for them to maybe see it. Reach out and let them know, and they'll put a little quote about you in there, and that'll really drive your SEO presence. And that's probably my biggest advice to people. That's what we do.
Yeah, I think that's such great advice because I don't see that happening very often, with the attorneys that I speak to. And it could be obviously a very low cost or no cost way of just really kind of increasing exposure. I think that's great advice. So Greg, thank you so much for sharing your experience. It was a real pleasure. It was a sincere thank you. So
Yeah, my pleasure. This is fun. Anytime.
lots of good stuff from Greg today. Here are the primary takeaways I see. 1, you can be your own publicist. When you have an interesting case, alert news organizations. Some specialties will have more publicity opportunity than others, of course. For Greg, his civil rights and employment work seem to generate more publicity-worthy cases than does personal injury. Number 2, publicity breeds more publicity. Stories about Greg's cases in the LA Times have led to more cases and more stories, right? So, those mentions improved his Google rankings and also brought TV appearances, which in turn then led him now, having his own TV show called iCrime. Greg's periodic outreach to journalists has really spawned all of this. Number 3, niche SEO work can be effective and affordable. Ranking for personal injury in the competitive Los Angeles market, is certainly unattainable for most small law firms like Greg's, but he's really ranking for those civil rights keywords, right? In part because of the news stories mentioning him, and Greg's SEO agency is wisely focusing its work on the civil rights niche instead of injury. Number 4, newsjacking works and it's completely free. Even though Greg has posted fewer than half a dozen videos commenting on high-profile cases, they've received a large number of views. One even hit 34,000 views, while more than his 26,000 Instagram followers. So Instagram has become a material source of clients for Greg and is growing. He spends nothing on the channel, doing no boosting, no advertising, and his wife handles the editing and posting. As with his publicity efforts using social media, Greg is taking advantage of that natural interest people have in the law to promote his practice. Both marketing channels can be 100% free. Big thanks to Greg for all of the spot-on advice today. I hope you can all join me next Wednesday for my interview with attorney Brittany Alexander. In less than 3 years, she's built a multi-million-dollar, 15-person, completely remote practice serving homeowners using organic social media. She has a great story. The interview is loaded with valuable Use Today tips. Thanks, everyone. See you all next time. Bye-bye.